Dear friends, for those of you who don't know what I mean by universal credit is the state benefit one receives in the UK when one has no income. I'm writing this on the day of my first universal credit payment. So, universal credit requires that I must show my willingness to apply for any viable minimum wage job in order to keep receiving this support. I must meet my assigned job coach once a week to provide evidence of my attempts to find gainful employment. The support itself is not at all enough to live off. I suggested to my job coach that I create a video showcasing my skills that may hopefully lead to me getting work that feels rewarding to me and more well suited to who I am as a person than the first minimum wage job that will take me. So, my friends, I'm looking for work. Hopefully, the showcasing of my skills and experience in this video may lead to something for me. So I'm going to present here what I see as my 4 strongest skill sets and areas of personal interest, in the hope that somebody who watches this video finds their self or somebody they know in need of one or more of my skills. These skill sets are, in no particular order, singer-songwriter and music producer, screenwriter and director, writer and poet, video editor and content creator. So let's get into it. I've been writing and producing my own songs since I was at college. I'm 56 years old now. I'm simply going to play a series of song clips here that is intended to showcase my versatility and depth. The clips that follow represent projects in which I had little to no collaboration from anybody else. In other words, it's pretty much all me, from writing to singing to music to video production. Sunday afternoons, the train to somewhere new, a movie in the dark, the face that you once knew, the landscape passing by, a momentary touch, the broken winter sky. How can it mean so much? I know it isn't true that everybody steals, but the notion comes anew. Am I the only one that feels the pizza? till every day. When the night time comes and you play, what else is there in this world to do? You know the clock is ticking, but your luck is never sticking. You wonder if you really thought this through. I feel it in my bones, there's no way to get back home. If there was, you know I'd be right there with you. I feel it in my bones, there's no way to get back home. If there was, you know I'd be right there with you. There's something in the motion of this lonely lovesick ocean, a thing you wish you never knew you knew. So now you get this feeling when you're staring at the ceiling. You are not the driver but the screw. I feel it in my
This is my highest joy.
We go downstairs, we don't remember who we are or what we came for. It's like we're newborn. We feel surprised, though we don't know what we expected or had hoped for. It's like we're at war.
What about all the problems? What about all the suffering?
We see.
Whatever's in your head, there's a rhythm in the river, a rhythm in the river. The world is just your soul, it smolders like a coal. Cool it down in the river, the freedom of the river. My friends and I agree that we will always be holding hands in the river, the rhythm of the river. You follow the lodestar, 'cause you know that you are the rhythm of the river, the power of the river. And sit right on it, might as well since you own it. What you doing? It's like you never seen your own face. Do it now, there's nothing for it. I'm right here, please don't ignore it. Why you waiting? Tell me, have you ever seen your own face? Sit right on it, might as well since you own it. What you doing? It's like you never seen your own face.
I made Lokalily back in 2010 as a humble home hobbyist with no previous filmmaking experience. Only one camera and tripod, a single microphone, and a group of volunteers with little to no acting experience. I wrote it, directed it, operated the camera myself, and edited it myself. All of these limitations are on full display in Lokalily, and yet it still manages to succeed as a coherent and unique movie that has been viewed online by well over 25,000 people, while the views for all of my other videos average at less than 100. Lokalily follows the story of Lily, a woman who wakes up in a field and, to all intents and purposes, appears to have travelled through time from the Victorian age to the modern day. Has she really travelled through time? Or is she just a crazy woman wearing old-fashioned clothes? Or is something else entirely going on?
Are you alright? So, why are you wearing that dress?
I don't know. It's not suitable.
What's the matter?
I don't know what's happening.
I think you've had some kind of breakdown.
Where do I go? Where do I go? Where do I go? Where do I go? I've had episodes before, but nothing like this. Mark, what has happened to the world?
I knew it was a bad idea.
I've escaped from a madhouse, haven't
So you want me to help you go back, even though you know I'm just humouring you?
The air disappeared. The world turned white. Everything turned white. Time itself turned white.
Hearing her voice in my head.
Me too.
Lokalily is not, for obvious reasons, able to compete with professionally produced films in terms of production values. At the time of making it, I didn't even know what colour grading is. It would never win an award for cinematography, and yet the film does have its moments of visual flair. I worked with unpaid musicians to create original music for the score, and I even built a Victorian time machine myself from scratch and employed forced perspective to create shots like this. But where Lokalily does not compete with professionally produced films at the technical level, I feel it does effectively compete at the level of storytelling. I think that any industry professional would be willing to acknowledge that what I managed to achieve with so few resources and no previous filmmaking experience is actually quite remarkable. Along with 3 full-length movie screenplays, I have written 2 novels and a book of poetry, in addition to writing all of the online content I produce. I'll read an excerpt from each of my 2 novels and one of my poems. This first excerpt is from my second novel, The Wizard in the Wood, an adult fantasy novel. You could perhaps call it my answer to The Lord of the Rings. The day Eonmor had rescued him had been the day he was supposed to die. This was easy enough to know. It was a simple and cold calculation. It was his 5th day tied up in the basket in the back of the covered cart, and of the 5 baskets, each containing a child that had been put into it, his was the last one left. As the cart rattled heavily over the cobbled market streets of Anchura, making its way to the city square, it was an easy thing to know that this day would be his last. For as blue as the sky was that he spied through the gaps in the basket and through the flapping canvas of the cart's covering, as relaxed and free were the spirits of the holiday crowds surrounding the cart on all sides, as insistent were the fanfares of the ribbon-flying horns, as optimistic and life-affirming was the aspect of this day for almost all concerned. It was equally clear that the beast he was to be given to, and which squatted in the dark beside his basket now, was an indomitable thing, which he had seen decapitate a horse with the swing of one frenzied arm. No rescuer would stand a chance. But the real reason why it was child's play to tell that this was the boy's last day was the simplest reason of all. Nobody wanted to rescue him. He had not been kidnapped. He had not been lost, was not the subject of a search. He had been sold. He was a commodity. For sure, if the unsuspecting miscellany of market traders, barterers and buyers were to discover what the cart concealed, there would be an outcry of disgust and horror and fear. But it would be a fear for their own safety and sensibilities, not for the fate of a small boy who nobody had missed anyway. And so, what hopes of escape inevitably flooded his being also with equal inevitability fell back again, scraping across the shores of his mind as they left. There was a part of him, despite his young age, which understood absolutely that whatever thoughts he had, whatever streams of consciousness managed to well up through the compressing layers of suffering and out into the glaring open reaches of his fear-brightened mind, were merely the thoughts of a thing. They were of as much use and as little moment as the dreams of furniture, even to himself. He knew they were but distractions from hell, glimpses of child-made heavens held onto with the steel wire fingers of a child's determination. His world was now compartmentalized, all of the horrors pushed off into one room. And although he made the corridor that led to that room as long as he could, the door to the darkness inside remained ajar, and the corridor held no other door, only a dead end with a peephole in the wall to an unreachable land of sunlight. Next, I'll read one of my poems that can be found in my collection, Parade of Incarnations. This is called The Road Springs from Him. Fat snowflakes will fall over Salfordian playgrounds, forming arch-vaulted avenues, whichever way he faces. Long fluttering corridors, arrow straight through the flurry, always leading away. A bit tall and grand they'll seem for this lad, and no matter his route down their untouchable turns, he cannot escape the pivot someone planted in him. When the snowfall ends, he will wonder where the corridors go. Snow doesn't stick on the streets of Salford, lad, where paving slabs push upwards, sweeping aside all sugary veils and sweet affronts, asserting the proud exile of innocence, where the avenues sit staunchly while they crumble, unmoved by the boys rattling through them. He'll go to bed bereft, in a city free from white. Yet when the night clock splinters on the dirt-lit streets, the snow power will come, sweeping silently on air, down those invisible lanes, through night-opened windows, to mind him, enter his nose, burrow neath his lids, scrape through the pores of his cheeks, finding its way home. In the snow streets of his memory and the snow parks of his dreams, the held breath air will carry voices with no loss of volume, over the crests of hills and around corners, so they appear with bell-like proximity right inside his ear. And they will always be the words of long-forgotten snow children, a play on the pristine streets that point arrow straight through the nothing, always leading back. My last excerpt comes from my first novel, The Monodream, a science fiction for young adult readers. At the moment when the international dateline reaches midnight, it is the same day all around the globe. When that imaginary line drawn down the Pacific Ocean reached midnight of Saturday, 25th of December, 1999, it was Christmas Day all around the world for just one hair's breadth of a moment, one eternal moment. In Banford, in Christine's house, it was noon. Away to the west, in Times Square, New York, it was 7 a.m. Away to the east, across the Himalayas, it was 6 p.m. Way up, in an invisible slot cut from the rock of the highest mountain on earth, 6 people were sitting in 6 armchairs that were arranged in a circle facing each other. Around the world, roughly half of the people had been waiting, with varying degrees of anticipation, for Sal Phillips's announcement. The remainder of the world's population had gone about its business as usual, oblivious to or largely unconcerned with such matters. I know this because I know everything about that moment. Everybody who was alive on the planet at that time knows about that moment. On a small round table in the centre of our circle of chairs was a spherical clock resting in a stand. It was a special clock that showed the time at the international dateline from whatever angle you looked at it. It was a special clock made by the most powerful being in the universe. I was looking at real Sal, observing the calmness in her face, the quiet purpose in her eyes. But as the reading of the clock reached for midnight, I glanced at it, and it was in that moment, which wasn't really a moment, where a new day hadn't quite yet been born, that the clock and the universe stopped. 7 a.m. in Times Square. The light rain, which had been falling for 20 minutes, now held its position in the air. Raindrops as brittle as glass hung motionless, reflecting the lights of a frozen city. A sizable crowd had gathered, despite the early hour and the fact that it was Christmas morning and raining, in the hope that Sal's announcements would somehow make it onto the giant plasma screen they were gazing up at. And now the blood no longer pumped in their veins. The hair and nails were no longer growing, and they could not move, not even to blink, not even to fall down, because the world had stopped. Everything had stopped. The air itself was as solid and silent as the clearest, hardest diamond. I have been making videos about foundational truth since 2020. This came about unexpectedly for me when I discovered that, to my surprise, our mathematicians have not agreed amongst themselves on what the word number means. The consensus they do hold to is that numbers and mathematical rules are emergent from and subject to the presence and interactions of physical phenomena. My surprise at all of this led me to think deeply on this issue, and I came to identify that The physical is always subject to change over space and time, while the mathematical truths that apply to the physical do not ever change. I came to understand that if one is ever to identify a cause of the physical, whatever that cause may be, it absolutely must be biological necessity, something that is not physical. To say that the cause of the physical is itself a physical phenomenon is a paradox, a self-defeating loop. I also identified that to say that non-physical mathematical truths that do not ever change are emergent from and subject to physical phenomena that is not only always in a state of relative change, but forever changing specifically in order to remain in agreement with these non-physical truths that never change, is to get the direction of causality backwards. So I have identified that human culture has the direction of causality backwards. And this applies to our mathematics, our sciences, our religions, all of the many and varied cultures humanity has produced. My reasoning on this is very simple, clear, and plain. It is lucid. It is coherent. And I have been trying to bring it to the attention of the world for the past 4 years. And it is a curious thing. Human culture, in all its different flavors, is what we came up with, while we had not yet identified a coherent foundation for our understanding of our own existence. And the situation we find ourselves in today is that while humanity essentially longs to understand itself, the cultures it has in place are so invested now in their own furtherance that they are strongly resistant to anything that might conceivably threaten their own furtherance. And the single greatest threat to their furtherance is the actual foundational truth. And so it is that while I produce my videos on foundational truth with the most positive intentions for us all, the world I look to share these videos with is highly resistant to them. And I have actually come to be one of the most strongly suppressed content creators online. It would be good for anybody considering commissioning me to understand and appreciate this about me. That I am so suppressed is a mark of the quality of my work. But without a doubt, it takes a measure of courage and confidence for anybody to champion me right now. I would recommend that before you do consider commissioning me for any kind of work that addresses deep issues, you become familiar enough with the kind of work I have produced in the past 4 years that you can feel confident you have a good sense of who I am, where I'm coming from, and what I'm about. For the song that hasn't been sung, are you looking for the bell that hasn't been rung? Do you wanna find out something that can't be broken? Are you waiting for the words that have never been spoken? Are you tired of the same old rhythm of life every day? Do you know that something is always getting in the way? You better come find my treasure. You'll see it's in no short measure. Yes, it may be controversial, but it's also universal. When will you come find my treasure? It's still waiting at your leisure. Gonna make some people angry only cause it's so plain to see. Plain to see. It's plain to see. For the gift that nobody sells? Are you looking for the truth nobody will tell? Do you wanna win the prize that nobody wins? Do you wanna start the thing that never begins? Are you tired of the same old rhythm of life every day? Know that something is always getting in the way. You better come find my treasure. You'll see it's in no short measure. Yes, it may be controversial, but it's also universal. When will you come find my treasure? It's still waiting at your leisure. Gonna make some people angry only cause it's so plain to see. Plain to see. It's plain to see. It's still waiting at your leisure. Gonna make some people angry only cause it's so plain to see.